Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
This time, we're going to be taking a look at the parable of the 10 virgins. You know, from the Gospel of Matthew.
Mm.
And you might be thinking, oh, Sunday school stuff, but
Yeah.
there's so much more to unpack here. There's symbolism, there's practical wisdom
Yeah.
that you can apply to your life right now. Like, it's all about being prepared, not just for like some far off event, but like making the most of right now.
Yeah, and I think what's so brilliant about this parable is that Jesus takes something that everyone's familiar with, a wedding,
Right.
and uses it to teach a really profound spiritual truth.
It's like he just drops you right into the scene. So imagine for a second
Yeah.
a bustling Jewish wedding back in ancient Israel. We're talking celebrations that could go on for days.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Huge community events, feasting, dancing, so much anticipation.
Yeah.
And the arrival of the bridegroom, I mean, that was the climax of the whole thing,
Mm.
often delayed, to heighten the excitement even more.
Oh, wow. So everyone's just on the edge of their seats.
Absolutely.
And then you've got these 10 virgins. Now, they're like the bridesmaids, right?
A little more than just bridesmaids, though.
Okay, yeah.
Their role was really crucial. I mean, they had these lamps.
Right.
And their job was to literally light the way for the whole bridal procession to make it to the banquet hall, often, late at night.
Wow. So no street lights back then, I'm guessing?
Nope, not at all. So can you imagine how important those lamps were?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if they went out,
Right.
the party's over.
Oh, wow. So that makes their preparedness even more important. I'm picturing these oil lamps, flickering in the darkness. It must have been quite a sight.
It must have been. And a huge responsibility, right? Keeping those lamps burning that took planning, vigilance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you start to see the difference between
Yeah.
the wise and the foolish virgins.
Okay. So 5 of them, they come prepared, extra oil, the whole 9 yards.
Hmm.
But the other 5, not so much. And it makes you wonder, like, what were they thinking? Were they just careless? Or, I don't know, is there something deeper going on there?
I mean, it's easy to, just write them off as unprepared.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks to something a little bit deeper.
Okay.
It's that human tendency we all have to procrastinate,
Oh, for sure.
especially when it comes to things that seem far off.
Yeah. Like, ooh, I'll get to that later.
Exactly. I'll start that diet tomorrow, or
Yeah.
I'll worry about my spiritual life next year.
Next year.
That kind of thinking.
We've all been there.
And this parable, it really challenges that,
It does.
because in the story of the bridegroom, he shows up when no one's expecting it.
It's a surprise.
Total surprise.
Yeah.
And it's like this reminder
Yeah.
that we never really know when life's going to throw us a curveball.
It's a be ready moment.
Exact.
And it's not just about, some far off events. It's about being prepared to face those everyday challenges, those opportunities that pop up, and really like squeeze the most out of life, right?
That's it. Yeah.
I mean, it really gets you thinking, what are your oil reserves, What do you need to be prepared for in your own life?
Big questions.
So picture this, right? It's midnight, everyone's asleep, makes sense.
Yeah.
And bam, the announcement comes. The bridegroom is here.
Uh-oh.
The wise virgins, they're ready to go, lamps lit.
Good to go.
But the foolish ones, panic sets in.
Big time.
Like their lamps are sputtering, they're scrambling for oil.
Last minute.
Totally, last minute preparation, and it's just not enough.
Too little, too late.
And they even try to ask the wise virgins, hey, can you spare some oil?
Oh, yeah.
But they say no. Like, why is that? Couldn't they have, helped each other out?
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because that oil, it's not just fuel, right?
Huh?
It's symbolic.
Oh,
It represents something that you can't just borrow or transfer from one person to another.
let me see.
It's about those inner qualities that really sustain us: faith, good works,
Right.
a connection to something bigger than ourselves.
So it's like you can't just cram for a spiritual exam, right?
Exactly.
Or borrow someone else's relationship with the divine.
Nope, that's yours.
You have to work for it, cultivate it.
It's an invitation to take ownership of your spiritual well-being.
Mm.
Each of us, we have to find our own way to keep that inner light burning bright.
So the foolish virgins, they run off to buy oil.
Yeah.
But by the time they get back,
The doors are closed.
oh no.
The wedding banquet. They've missed it. And, that's where the parable drives home this idea of missed opportunities
Mm.
and the consequences of, putting things off.
Yeah. I mean, this part can be a little tough,
Okay.
but I don't think it's about scaring people, It's
Yeah.
about understanding that our choices, they have consequences. Like there's a sense of urgency to living with intention.
Yeah. It reminds us to make the most of every chance we get to, to grow, to align ourselves with what matters.
Right, to connect with our values. It's
Yeah,
almost like that closed door.
it's powerful.
Yeah, it's like a symbol for those times when we realize, oh, man, the time for that opportunity has
It's
passed.
that wake-up call.
Yeah,
Don't wait, prepare now.
don't let those chances slip away.
Absolutely.
I mean, this parable is just so rich with symbolism, with this historical context. But you know what I really appreciate about it?
That's it.
It gives us these practical steps. Like, we can actually do something
Yeah.
to avoid ending up like those foolish virgins.
Really. There are concrete steps we can take to make sure our, metaphorical lamps are always burning bright.
Let's dive into those right after this.
Sounds good. So, we were just talking about how this parable isn't just some ancient story. It actually gives us some practical advice, like steps we can take.
Right. It's like,
Yeah.
how do we avoid becoming one of those foolish virgins?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the first things the source mentions is this idea of a spiritual routine.
Okay, a routine. So is this like taking your spiritual vitamins every day or something?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's more about finding a rhythm,
Mhm.
a pattern of intentional actions that help you connect with something bigger than yourself.
Okay.
It's about finding what works for you, those practices,
Yeah.
and then weaving them into your daily life.
So
And it's the same with our spiritual lives. They need that regular care and attention.
makes sense.
And the source also talks about this idea of regular self-evaluation, like
Mhm.
what it calls evaluating readiness.
Okay, so this is where we get honest with ourselves, right? Like no more spiritual procrastination.
Exactly. It's about taking a step back, asking yourself those tough questions.
Or wait, what?
Am I living in alignment with my values?
Mm-hmm.
Am I growing, evolving? Where do I need to, make some adjustments?
Oh, I see. So it's kind of like a spiritual inventory, maybe even like writing it down,
Yeah.
journaling about it.
That can be really helpful.
Yeah,
And, you don't have to do this alone.
right.
The source emphasizes how important it is to, encourage other people on their journey.
Oh, I like that. So even though our spiritual journeys, they're personal,
Yeah,
we can still support each other along the way.
absolutely. We can learn from each other, share our struggles and victories,
Mm-hmm.
offer support. It's like having a spiritual support system.
I love that. It's like we're all in this together,
Exactly.
each of us, like holding a lamp to light the way for others.
Mhm.
Now, there's one step in the source material that really jumps out at me. It says act today.
Oh, yeah.
Why the emphasis on like immediate action?
Well, remember, the parable reminds us that we don't know what tomorrow holds.
Right.
It's a call to seize the day,
Yeah.
to finally take those steps that you've been putting off.
Make amends, deepen your faith, whatever it is.
Yeah. Live with purpose. Don't wait.
No more excuses, right? It reminds me of that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Exactly. It's never too late to start.
And you know what? This whole idea of urgency,
Mm-hmm.
it ties back to that whole midnight hour thing we were discussing earlier.
Oh, you're right. We can't forget about that.
We've talked about all the symbolism in those practical steps, but we haven't really unpacked what that midnight hour actually means.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore there.
Right. It's like a whole mystery in itself.
It is. It's a powerful metaphor.
Well, let's unravel that mystery in part 3.
Let's do it.
You know, this whole conversation about the parable has really gotten me thinking, We've talked about all the symbolism, those practical steps we can take to be prepared, like the wise virgins. But what about that midnight hour thing? What does that actually mean for us today, Like,
It's a powerful image, isn't it? Because midnight, it's not just about a time on the clock.
right.
It's more like a metaphor for the unexpected.
Don't expect it.
It's that moment when everything can change in an instant, that turning point.
Oh, I see.
You're just going along and bam, where
Yeah.
it shifts.
So it's not about like literal nighttime. It's more about those moments in life that kind of demand our attention, our readiness, whether we feel prepared or not.
Exactly. It's like midnight is that point between one day and the next.
Yeah.
That time of transition, darkness before the dawn.
Mhm.
It's that pause, before a new beginning.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to get it now. So in the parable, midnight is when the bridegroom shows up.
Right.
And those who aren't ready, they miss out. But how does that, like, translate to our lives? I mean,
That's the big question.
yeah, like, what are our personal midnight hours, you know?
And, it's different for everyone. I mean, your midnight hour, it could be a
Yeah.
sudden crisis, a loss,
Hmm.
or maybe a huge opportunity that comes out of nowhere. Even, a moment of grace, unexpected
So
grace.
it's not always something bad?
No, not at all.
It could be a good thing, like a positive turning point, but
Exactly.
it's still like a wake-up call, right?
It is.
You have to be ready.
You do.
Okay, so it's like a crossroads. You're called to make a choice.
Yes.
Step into this new reality.
That's it.
And the question is, are you ready?
Big question.
That's pretty deep. So it's not about knowing exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
It's about being prepared for anything, being adaptable.
It's about having that inner readiness,
Mm.
that spiritual uh, agility, so you
Yeah.
can face whatever comes your way.
Wow.
Because here's the thing. We never know when our own midnight hours are going to strike.
True.
It could be tomorrow. It could be 10 years from now. It could be 5 minutes from now.
Okay, that's a little intimidating,
Yeah.
but also exciting. But the good news is, like, we've already talked about those steps, right? We can
Like-
establish those spiritual routines,
Mhm.
evaluate our readiness, encourage each other,
Absolutely.
and most importantly, act today.
Don't wait.
So when our midnight hour does come knocking,
Yeah.
we'll be ready to face it
Mm.
with, a bit of grace and a sense of peace.
And, maybe we'll even discover that the darkness, the unknown,
Yeah.
it's not something to be afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's actually a doorway
Ooh, I like that. A doorway.
to something more beautiful, more meaningful, something that's more aligned with, who we really are.
Man, that's a powerful thought. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the parable of the 10 virgins,
Mhm.
I think the takeaway is this. Stay awake.
Stay aware.
Yeah, stay aware and keep that lamp burning bright.
Because you just never know when your midnight hour will arrive.
And, maybe the journey itself, the preparation, that's
Yeah.
just as important as whatever's waiting on the other side of that door.
It's about the seeking, the striving, the tending to that inner flame.
Absolutely. What a journey this has been. I hope this deep dive has sparked something for you, got you thinking about your own midnight hour and what it means to be ready. Until next time, keep diving deep.